Hello, everybody. Jeff Gibby over at MetaStock. I hope you're doing well. Happy 2020. If you can believe it, we're 23 days into the new year already. So I hope you haven't given up on your New Year's resolutions yet. Anyway, let's go ahead and get going. I want to say thank you for coming. I always enjoy doing these things. Let's go ahead and get started. Today's demonstration is designed to instruct you on using MetaStock and the accompanying software plugins. It is not a recommendation to buy or sell, but rather guidelines to interpreting and using specific indicators and features within the software. The information, software, and techniques presented today should only be used by investors who are aware of the risk inherent in trading. And MetaStock should have no liability for any investment decisions based on the use of their software, any trading strategies, or any information provided in connection with the company. So there you go. There's a little bit of legal for you. I hope you're doing well. And I hope it's not your favorite part of today, in any case. In case you're not familiar with me, I'm just going to kind of tell you a little bit about who I am. I've worked here at MetaStock this year. I'll be finishing up my 23 years and starting my 24th year. So I started in inside sales and did that for about a decade. I did business development for about a decade, and now I'm the director of sales. And it's been a fun job. It's a great company to work for. We're located here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I could wax for a long time about like the history that we've got and the things that our software does. It is a software that's been in business, or we're a company that's been in business since 1982. And but the one thing I do want to talk a little bit about is for the last 27 years in a row, we've been rated #1 by the readers of Stocks and Commodities magazine. And if you're not familiar with MetaStock, I'm glad you came today. The reason I think we've been rated for #1 for 27 years in a row is it's a full set of tools that we've been working on for over 30 years now, but it allows customers to scan full markets. It allows them to test trading ideas. We've got a patent-pended forecaster that looks at statistics and tries to give you an idea of what works, what a stock's likely to do based on our patent-pended methods. And it gives real-time advice and tells you exactly what to do in a market with the use of our expert commentary. So it's a very, very big toolbox. We're obviously not going to talk about the whole thing today. We're going to talk about a very small part of MetaStock and one of my favorite trading systems that are built into MetaStock. I would say that if you have questions, feel free to ask. I'll be doing my best to actually pay attention to the questions and answer them as they come in. And today, what we're going to focus on is the Rahul Mohinder oscillator, or the RMO system. The RMO system is a trend following system. You might have heard like the trend is your friend, or befriend the trend, or rising tide lifts all boats. I'm sure you've all heard of that cliche in the marketplace before. The RMO system is very much a trend following or a trend-based system. RMO stands for Rahul Mohinder Oscillator. If you're not familiar with Rahul, that's okay. Rahul is actually a dealer of ours that has been a dealer of MetaStock in India. What he does for his main business is he actually teaches people how to trade, and he's a really, really good trader. He's been extremely successful with us. There's been many, many years where in India he sold more MetaStock than we have in other places in the world, and he's just been a really, really successful business partner with us. The story of how RMO got into MetaStock is a little bit of an interesting one. It was maybe 10 or 12 years ago. He was in the office, and we actually asked him. At this point, he was on top of just his game. We'd get lots and lots of MetaStock subscriptions every month and lots of new MetaStock sales. And he's in the office in Salt Lake City, and we're like, hey, Rahul, what we're really, really interested in is you're obviously doing a ton of business in India. What do you actually use to show people how to trade? And I remember he basically opened up his laptop and he showed us this Rahul, the system, this RMO system that I'm about to show you. The long story short is me and my boss at the time, Scott Brown, took a look at that. We decided we really, really liked it. And what we did was we actually kind of bought the rights to include this RMO system with MetaStock. And I believe that was all the way back in MetaStock 10. So it was a long, long time ago. I'm really glad we bought it because he was joking with me last year, Rahul was, that he thinks I've done more actual educational classes on RMO than he has. And it's actually the very first method I used in my own trading. And so I'm going to show it to you today. There's a couple reasons I like to show this to you. You know, there are other topics that I like to talk about. This is one of my favorites. The reasons, though, are it's easy. So if I do a pretty good job today, I'm going to go through the kind of the 3 steps to identify trades. You're going to understand it. It's not hard to comprehend at all. It's also objective. So I'm going to basically go through the rules. You'll be able to understand exactly how to read the trend, how to identify the trend, what to do with the trend, etc., etc. I also like the fact that it employs solid money management. You can use it in just about any time frame, and it works on many different instruments. You know, invariably you'll find instruments that don't work at all with RMO, and that's okay. But generally speaking, I've shown this system all over the world. I've shown it in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia. You name a country, I've probably shown RMO there. And I'm always looking at a variety of different instruments, and I find that it works very, very well on a lot of different instruments. And it's a very, very simple 3-step process. So that's kind of where we're going to get started today. I will say that if you're watching on GoToWebinar or if you're watching on YouTube, either one, and there's symbols that you want to look at, go ahead and start typing those in, and we're going to kind of look at your symbols today. So in any case, let's go ahead and kind of talk a little bit about what we're talking about. So obviously, if we want to be able to trade with the trend, we want to be able to identify the trend. And so that's the first thing that we're going to try to talk about. And when I start to talk about trend, when we talk about RMO, we're going to talk about like long-term trend, or what Rahul calls primary trend. We're going to talk about short-term trend, and we're going to talk about intermediate trend. Okay, and so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about trend. If you do have symbols you'd like to look at, go ahead and type them in. I don't see a lot of them coming in, but we're going to jump into MetaStock, and I'm going to show you how to do this in MetaStock. So in any case, all right. And if you don't pick symbols, I will. So we had somebody ask for Tesla yesterday. We'll just start with Tesla. If you have other stocks that you want to look at, let's go ahead and look at them as well. Okay. So if we want to be able to identify the trend, or make the trend our friend, or trade with the trend, the first thing that we want is a way to objectively identify what the trend is. Okay. It's a very, very core part of trading with trading. It's okay. If we want to trade based on a rules-based system, we want to be able to understand the rules. We want to be able to easily identify if the market's shooting up, whether it's bullish or bearish, or we don't want to be kind of making judgment guesses. So with step 1, what we're going to do with RMO is we're going to identify what Rahul calls the primary or the prevailing trend. Okay, and the way that we do that is we'll be focused on the Rahul Mohinder oscillator. So right here you've got, this is the kind of one of the first indicators we're going to look at. You're going to notice a couple things about this particular indicator. Number one, the first thing you're going to notice is it's green. The next thing that you're going to notice is that it's either above 0 or below 0. So I'm going to put a little bit of a line right here on 0. And the way that you read this indicator is pretty straightforward. Rahul likes to keep things simple, and I promise you this would be an easy system to understand. So the way we read this is it's either above 0 or it's below 0. If it's above 0, then the long-term trend, in this case Tesla, is bullish. So ever since about right here on the chart, the beginning of September 5th, we've been in a long-term bullish trend for Tesla. If it's down below 0, like it was right before that for just a little bit of time, then long-term it's long-term it's bearish. Okay, here it's bullish, here it's bearish. Again, we're looking at just long-term. Okay, now what does that mean for us in terms of the way we want to trade this? Well, we want to trade in the direction of the trend, and it's really, really simple. The first thing we want to look at is what is our primary trend. If it's bullish, that tells us a couple of things. The first thing that it tells us is that since we want to trade with the trend, no shorts are allowed. Okay, so we won't be looking at taking any short positions as long as this is above zero. And the other thing that's important about this is it's not our only condition to get in a trade. So if we're looking back here at September 5th when it went from bearish to bullish, that's not a trigger to get into the marketplace. What we're simply doing is we're kind of looking at what the weather forecast is and saying, okay, well, right now it's moving up, so we're going to only look at identifying those long-term trends. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, if you do have questions, feel free to ask. We do have a question that came in from Ramesh saying, what types of MetaStock do we offer? Right now we offer a DC version, which stands for daily charts version of MetaStock. And we offer a real-time version of MetaStock, which is, well, pretty self-explanatory. It's our full real-time version. I'll be going over the cost of both of those a little bit later in the presentation for you, Ramesh. And the other thing that I want to say is important is everything I'm going to show you today, you can do in either version of MetaStock. Okay? All right. So let's go ahead and kind of make this a little bit of a less full screen. The one thing that I do want to point out right here is, in addition to looking at this indicator that you have on the top, you can look at the trend ribbon that we've got on the bottom, and you can see very easily that if it's in a bullish or bearish state. So for example, right here, we've been bullish on Tesla during this whole huge move up, and you can either see that because it's above zero here, or because it actually paints a bar at the bottom here that says RMO is bullish. Okay. The other thing that I'm going to add right here, before we even go to number 2, is even just looking at Tesla. If we were looking to only take long positions from 226 to 560 something in Tesla, I would say that already we're putting the odds in our favor. Okay, and if we look at kind of where it's been had massive moves down, you look at where this big bearish place came in for Tesla, we would have been bearish from about 306 to about 220. And so I'd say only taking short positions during this downwards move would also be putting the odds in our favor. We want to, but we do want to follow the rest of the rules when it comes to the stocks that we're doing. But my point is you want to trade in the direction of the trend because it's your friend. Anyway, all right. So just to recap, if the RMO is in a bullish zone, you're allowed to buy. You're not allowed to short, and it's not a trigger to enter. Okay, and you just reverse the rules. If it's in a bearish zone, you're allowed to short. You're not allowed to long, and it's not a trigger to enter. Okay, cool. All right. Second thing, step number 2 in our 3-step process is we want to identify what the short-term trend is. So I'm just going to jump back into our Tesla stock right here, and we'll talk a little bit about the 2 indicators we use to identify the trend on a short-term basis and get triggers into the market. So the first one we talked about was the green Rahul Mohinder oscillator. Right here we've got swing trade number 2 and swing trade number 3, and I'm going to go ahead and make those full screen. Okay, and the other thing that I'm going to do real quick is I actually prefer to look at these at a slightly different way than is the default, and I'm going to just change the view a little bit. And one of the things I like about MetaStock is anytime you want to change something, just double click on it. So I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to change the style to align. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And then all of a sudden I have a histogram as well as a line. Okay, I prefer that view. You're welcome to kind of do this and save it this way if you want to look at it this way. It's just a little bit easier for me to look at visually. Okay. Now, what I'm going to pay attention to for looking at the short-term trend is I'm going to pay attention to this purple indicator that's on the chart. Okay, maybe it's a fuchsia color, the one that's not blue. I'm not sure exactly what the technical term for that color is, but this purplish, pinkish indicator is the one that we're going to pay attention to. Okay, right here, you'll notice a few things. It's pink. The other thing that you're going to notice is it's a lot faster. In other words, if we compared it to the green indicator we were looking at before, it's a lot more volatile. It has a tendency to go up above zero and down below zero a lot faster than the other one. And the reason that happens is it's looking at a shorter time frame. What we're looking at to analyze with this is what Rahul calls the short-term trend. Okay, And but we read it the same way as a long-term trend. So, for example, right now, if we're looking at Tesla, we're looking at the hard edge right head, the hard right edge down here. We'd be looking at this being above zero. So, short term, we could say that this is bullish as well. Okay, if we're down like it is right back here, if it's down below zero, then short term, you'd say it's bearish. Okay, now, so we read it the same way and we use it the same way. In other words, if I'm looking at Tesla and I see that our long-term trend is bullish, I can then look at our short-term trend and I can say, okay, yeah, that's bullish as well. And as long as those match up, we're bullish long-term and we're bullish short-term, we're allowed to trade. And it's that simple, okay? If they're both bearish, we'd be allowed to take a short position and not go long, right? If they don't match, we're not allowed to trade, we're allowed to wait, okay? And those are really kind of the two choices. So what I want to do when I'm looking at something like Tesla, okay, long term, am I bullish? Yes. Short term, am I bullish? Yes, absolutely. I'm allowed to trade. And we'll talk about how the triggers work in just a second here, but it is really, really simple. And again, that's one of the reasons I like to show it to you. With MetaStock, we can get really, really complicated. We can kind of go in and show you how to write formulas if we want to. But it's such a good toolbox. The reason I like to show this is something that I think you can use right out of the box with very little training that's going to help you with your right out of the gate. Okay, so let's go ahead and kind of look at the other thing that I want to point out is when our RMO is bullish, we had this ribbon on the chart. When our short-term swing trade 2 indicator is bearish, what you're going to have is you're going to have blue bars. So you see that all of these bars lately have been plating blue as Tesla has just risen up. That just signifies when that's a blue bar, that signifies that short-term you're bullish. Okay, when it's a red bar like it is right back here in this area, it signifies that short-term you're bearish. So you can look at this a couple of ways. You can come in here and look at Tesla and say, okay, we're bullish long-term because of the ribbon or the indicator. Okay, we're bullish short-term because the color of the bar or the indicator. So it is very, very easy to read. And one of the things Rahul really preaches is to keep it simple. In other words, it's either bullish or it's bearish. The size of it, how far above zero, doesn't matter. You want to keep these simple. And that helps when you're kind of trying to decide what to trade because everything's objective and you want things to be objective. Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and kind of get back into this part of the, okay. Just to recap, again, if the primary trend is bullish and the short-term trend is bullish, you're allowed to buy. If they're both bearish, you're allowed to short. If they don't match, you're allowed to wait. Or you can use a scanner. We have a MetaStock. In MetaStock, we have what we call our Explorer tool, and it'll allow you to scan for opportunities to find stocks that actually have an opportunity now. But certainly what we want to be able to do is put our odds in our favor. We want to trade with the trend. If you're getting mixed signals, just wait. It's not that big. What you want to do is trade when the opportunity is best and when the odds are most in your favor. Okay? So assuming, as in the case with Tesla, that everything matches up, what we want to do is we want to then look for a trigger. Okay? So, and I'm going to go back to our Tesla chart here to kind of talk a little bit about how the triggers work and how you use them. And what we'll do, we don't have a trigger that exists kind of here in the recent past. We've been in a long trade in this chart for a while. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back to about September 5th when we went from bearish to bullish long term, way back here when Tesla was down at 220, and kind of show you how we would have read the Tesla chart, how we would have moved our stops, how we would have allowed to stayed into the trade. Okay. Matthew asked a question. Thank you for the question, Matthew. Is there documentation on how the oscillator is calculated? Not on RMO, Matthew. With RMO, Rahul has kept that as a trade secret. So we don't have any information that we publish around how the oscillator is calculated. But I do appreciate the question. So in any case, let's go ahead and kind of zoom in right here. Okay. And we'll just go through kind of how the trades work. Okay. So if we were looking here, let's say we started looking right before this went bullish and went crazy. If we're looking here at 8/30, 2019, our situation, our assessment of the chart is we're bearish long term and we're bearish short term. okay? And we would not be looking to place long trades, and there's not a trigger for a long trade or a short trade at this point. So at this point, we'd just be waiting for the conditions to give us a trade, okay? The very next bar, though, if you look at kind of the right here, and I'm just going to put a horizontal line here so you can I can be clear about the bar I'm talking about. Right here on this bar, what we've got is not only did it go bullish long term, it went bullish short term as well. So we had the green bullish long term indication. We have the blue signifying that it's short term bullish. We also had an arrow form underneath the chart. You'll see there's a little bit of a buy arrow. I want to talk specifically about how that's formed, though. And so let me kind of zoom out a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about these two indicators that we were talking about before, because I kind of skipped a little bit, but this is an important part of it. So let me zoom out just a bit. I want you to be able to see kind of the way the oscillators are here. And let me go back to this, this pink indicator with the blue line. Again, the pink indicator was a short-term trend. The green indicator that we looked at very first was the long-term trend. And you'll notice that the blue one is about right in the middle. It's not as fast as the short-term trend, and it's not as slow as the long-term trend, and it is a medium-term trend. But where this is a little bit different is the kind of the way that we use it. So this is the medium-term trend. Unlike the short-term and the long-term, we don't care if this is above zero or below zero. What we're looking for, particularly with the blue indicator, is what Rahul calls a change of direction or a change of momentum or a change of force, okay? And so what you see right here is you'll see that our short-term indicator is very, very bearish. It starts to get less bearish, less bearish, less bearish, and then goes into a bullish phase. At some point when that happens, it's going to get more bullish than the medium-term trend. It's going to cross the medium-term trend. And right here where this line is drawn is where that cross happens. So right here, this line where we change kind of from a bullish to a bearish phase is what is called a change of direction or a change of force. Okay, I've got to pause my video over here. I can see myself playing in the corner. It's distracting. Okay, so what we've got here, this is that change of momentum, that change of direction, that change of force. Okay, and when that happens on the chart, you're going to get a buy signal on the chart. Okay, now you will get buy signals when things don't work out. Like right here, you're getting a sell signal when everything's bullish. So we wouldn't take that sell signal. If we get a buy signal right here on 9-3, we're bullish long-term, we're bullish short-term, we can structure a trade, okay? So we're almost ready to trade. There's a couple things that Rahul wants us to do. He wants us to make sure that it's still going to move up in the direction, and he wants us to put in a stop loss. And so the way that what we're going to do to kind of identify and satisfy both of those criteria is I'm going to grab this horizontal line tool, okay? I'm going to look at the high right here, where everything goes positive, where I'm deciding to trade. I'm going to look at the high of the bar before, okay? I'm going to make a visual assessment that this bar is higher than this bar, and I think you'll agree with me. Again, this stuff is easy. It's duplicatable, okay? Since this bar is higher, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a horizontal line right above there. And if price ever goes above that activity, or above this line, that's where we're going to actually buy, okay? Because a lot of times what Rahul wants is that additional confirmation. A lot of times it might kind of give us a signal and then it'll hit up against resistance. He wants that broken. He wants it confirm it's going to go up by going above its high, okay? The other thing that he wants you to do, and you're going to want to do this on every trade before you get into a trade, is you want to put a stop loss in place. Okay. Now, Rahul says there's a couple of different ways you can look at a stop loss, and so this is one that you can kind of pick what you like to do. The first way he kind of teaches about the stop loss is we can put it the same way that we put in our entry point. We can look at the low of this bar. We can look at the low of this previous bar, and you can put in that case, you put a stop loss right about here. This is the lower of those two. Okay. What I like to do for my stop loss is I like to look for a previous pivot low, okay? If you're not familiar with the pivot low, it's a very, very easy concept to understand. You're going to look for the most recent time where there was a low that was surrounded by two higher lows. Okay, so right here, these are, I think the first one I see right here, here's a low. This low is higher, this low is higher, so this is your most recent pivot low. Okay, in that case, I would put my stop loss right about here. Okay, right below that pivot low. Again, I'm wanting to choose where that support level is. So in this particular case, this is where my stop loss is going to be. This is where my entry is going to be. And I can actually write those down, and I usually do, okay? So like right here, I'd be entering it, I'd be entering it roughly about 233.48, okay? So let's go ahead and write that number on the chart, 233.48, okay? Here, if I get into that trade, I'll be getting out at 210 and some change, right? So 210, okay? And change, I think it was 83, okay? So now I know where I'm going to get in. I know if I get in, where I'm going to get out. And what does that give me as a trader? Well, it gives me a couple things. It gives me a really good idea of what my risk reward is going to look like. My risk is the difference between 233 and 210. It's about 20%, or 20 points, which is about 10% on a $200 stock, if the math is okay in my head. It also gives me a game plan. Have you ever, as a trader, gotten into a stock and then it went against you? I'm sure it's happened, right? Did you have an idea of where you were going to get out, or did you just watch it go against you and try and make that decision on the fly? So with this, we want to, one of the things I love about RMO, aside from the fact that it works really well, is I know where I'm going to get in, and more importantly, I know where I'm going to get out. And I'm not like making these decisions based on, you know, how much I can afford to lose, or I'm making these decisions based on what the chart is telling me. I don't think the market cares what you can afford to lose. Like it's just not, it doesn't care, right? What I'm looking at is I'm based on where support is and where resistance is, and I'm looking to make educated decisions based on that. And I'm going into the plan with a game plan. So hopefully that's clear. It definitely does help me a lot. Let's go ahead and kind of play through this. I can show you how the actual stops are manipulated or played and that kind of stuff. So in this particular case, we put our entry level at 233.48. We put our stop loss at 210, .XX, okay? And you'll notice that for about 1, 2, 3, 4 days, we don't do anything. We just keep an eye on this. It doesn't hit a price where we're going to buy. Finally, on the 9th, we get a cross up above this line. That's enough, okay? We don't wait for a close above the line. You can buy it right as close to 233.48 as you want, okay? First thing that we do when we put that in is we put in our stop loss, okay? And then we're good to go. Let's kind of follow this along a little bit, okay? So as would happen, of course, it kind of comes up a little bit, kind of goes sideways immediately, right? And kind of says, are you sure? Gives us a little bit of this shift of momentum to the downside. And you'll see that shows up right on your chart, okay? So here you have a bit of a shift up of momentum to the downside. It even goes low enough to kind of trigger a short-term bearish signal right here, okay? And this generally is kind of expectable, okay? As long as we don't go full bearish on this, you can kind of stay in this trade. If we did go full bearish, we'd go ahead and get out, okay? But we didn't hit our stop loss. We do have this bit of a pullback here. We do have a little bit of a ride to the upside then, and we have another shift to the momentum to the upside, which is signified by this arrow, okay? So what we've had is we've had a bit of a ride up, a little bit of a ride down, and a bit of a ride back to where we were, right? When we have this happen on the chart, in other words, when we're in a long position and we get a new buy signal, there are a couple of things you can consider here, okay? The first is Rahul does say you can buy more positions. I don't like to do that. Personally, I like to buy as much as I'm going to buy the first trade. But that's optional. You can definitely play with buying more at this point if you want to. The other thing that's not optional is we want to move our stops. So, see, the market's come up. It's come back down. It's set a new resistance level. And this new buy signal gives us an opportunity to go in and kind of improve our stop loss. So if I was looking at this here, I would move my stop. I'd move my stop the same way. I would look for our most recent pivot low, which is this low here, that's surrounded by two higher lows, and that's where I would put in my stop loss. Okay, and we keep going. Here we had another shift in momentum. Okay, and it did take Tesla a few times to get going in this one. Here we have another entry signal and another opportunity for move our stop. We would move our stop at this point to this price right here, this pivot low, this low surrounded by two higher lows. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and kind of just continue to go forward here. Okay, now we finally start to move into this big uptrend. Here you have a downside signal. We had that shift of momentum to the downside. But again, we're still bullish long term. We're still bullish short term. We're going to let the market kind of play around a little bit. We're going to wait for this the shift back to the strength. And as soon as that happens, as soon as we've set up that resistance area, we're going to go ahead and move up our stop to this pivot low here. Okay, so here's where you'd move your stop based on this shift of momentum. We'd move it to here because it's our closest pivot low. This low is surrounded by two higher lows. I don't think any of these other lows would qualify. Maybe this one. Okay, but you kind of get the idea. Okay, we can go ahead and follow that along. And this is kind of how the trade sits. We'd still be in this trade. This system isn't very aggressive. I kind of like it that way. I don't have a lot of time to trade. But so far we'd be in at 233.48 in Tesla. Okay, we would have moved our stop maybe 3-4 times. Right now we'd have a protective stop at 326, and we'd be in the money fairly solidly now. Okay, so there you go. In addition to that, that's about it. I mean, it's that easy. It's not a very, very complicated system. That's, again, part of the simplicity of why I like to look at it this way. This is the first system I ever started to trade with real money, and I've shown it hundreds and hundreds of times. It's such a simple system. It's so easy to implement, and it just follows all the basics. When you get into it, you're going to know what your stop loss is. You're going to know exactly why you're getting in, and you're going to have an exit plan. And it's been so helpful for me to just kind of have a good trading system to show people. I did have somebody, and I hope you're watching today, somebody actually emailed me directly and wanted me to specifically talk about these exit swing signals and how they work. So I hope you're watching, because I'm going to do that for you. But the exit swing signals are something that Rahul also uses, and they're an alternate exit strategy. I don't use them too often. If I was in a position for Tesla, I might be considering actually using them right now. But let me kind of talk to you a little bit about how they work, okay? It's actually pretty simple. If you're in a long position and this comes down below the blue line and then goes back above it, you can consider placing a trailing stop. Okay, so for example, if we were doing Tesla, this big pullback would have pulled this down below the blue line, and then it went back above the blue line. At this point, you could put in a trailing stop or move a stop. It just gives you another opportunity to put in a protective stop. And you can see where that would be kind of advantageous, because we've traveled a long distance to get from here to here. It might be a good idea to move a trailing stop here, because it just gives you another level of protection. The last time that had happened, it had come down to here and up here, so you'd be looking at moving a trailing stop to here. So that's how the exit swing signal is used. I don't typically use it, but in a case where I'm pretty long in a trade and the trend is strong like it is in Tesla here, I might actually consider pushing that into play. The other question that was given was, how do you use the explorations in MetaStock? So I will show that as well. Let me go ahead and open up the Power Console for MetaStock, and we'll go to the scanning tabs. And I do have some updated data that I just kind of updated. And we'll just kind of talk a little bit about how the scans work. So I'm going to come down here to, I believe they're called RMO scans in here. So let's go ahead and find those here. Okay, so here they are. They're all under RMO. So if I wanted to go ahead and obviously find stocks that were kind of giving me a buy signal, let's go ahead and, there's a couple of different scans that I could run. This RMO bullish scan, what it will do, I actually need to remove Volt. from last night. Okay, let's go ahead and take that out. What the RMO bullish scan is going to do is it's going to go in and it's going to filter out all of the stocks that are not bullish long term. So this ribbon down at the bottom, if it's not bullish long term, it's going to kick it out. Okay, this one right here will give us anything that has a new blue signal. Okay, so this will be looking for anything that just gave us a recent blue signal. It's called the RMO market trend new blue. Okay, so I can run both of these. And what I will do that real quick. Let's go ahead and run that against the S&P 500. This is local data. It should run really quickly. And it's just going to go through. Look how fast it's going. Already it's identified how many are long-term bullish. And then it went through the second part just to tell us which ones have a new blue. So in that first scan, you'll notice right here it loaded about 505 symbols in there. Out of the S&P 500, 422 of them had results. It rejected 83. So out of the 500, about 420 came through that as being bullish long-term. And then out of those 422, it went ahead and loaded those into a different scan and had a result of these 5 were left. Okay. And let me just check. I might have actually had, you said, okay. Nope. I did it wrong. Okay, but we can, that's okay. It's fast, we can do it again. You'll see right here in the multiple exploration options, this one is using the same list. I want to use the results from the preceding exploration. So let me run that scan real quick. The difference here is it's going to go through those 500 again. It's going to reject the 83. It's going to take everything that's left and actually show us the ones that are bullish and also have a long term. So the option that you want to set when you're running a scan in that specific thing is use the results from the preceding exploration. Okay, out of the 500 stocks, the ones that we could look at to see if they're triggering and see where our options to buy are is Analog Devices, Johnson Controls, Mohawk Industries, and Stericycle. So now instead of looking at 500 stocks, you can focus on the four that have an opportunity and see which ones you like the best. I love the scanner in MetaStock. I think it's one of the reasons that we've been rated #1 and so highly for so long. Let me check to see what questions we've got, or if there are questions that are coming in here. We do have, Gio, thanks for the comment about the good presentation. I appreciate that. Do I have any?
And Gio would also like that you look at DB.
Okay, well, we do have a little bit of extra time, so absolutely. Let's take, and we'll just take a quick look at DB. So DB is the stock. Deutsche Bank. All right, well, here we go. Our marketing guy is always asking me for my opinion on Deutsche Bank. So let's give you Rahul's opinion for today. This video just keeps playing itself. Okay. Maybe. Okay, there we go. Little bit. All right. So we do have an alert right here because we just had a buy signal. This is not a recommendation to buy or sell securities. If we were looking at it today, though, and we didn't have a position in DB, bullish were long-term, bearish were long-term. And so we could be looking to structure a trade. If I was looking to structure a trade on DB right now, here's where I'd be entering. Here's my high. Here's yesterday's high, right above here. And of course, you want a stop loss. Again, I use a pivot low. So you've got a pivot low here. You've got a pivot low here because this low is higher and this low is higher. So there would be my stop loss. Okay. So this is the way my trade would look. I'd be looking to buy 853. I'd have a stop loss at 823. Okay. Does it work historically on DB? Maybe. If we looked at where we went from bullish to bearish, I don't see any trades in there. Right now, if we would have been taking this particular trade, this would be the first time in this uptrend to get long. The short wouldn't have worked out so well. And again, it doesn't work on all instruments, but play with it, right? This trade would have been okay if you're using your stop loss. I have to say, though, I think Kelly would agree with me, the recent behavior of DB probably wouldn't be conducive to trading with RMO. And that's okay. You can always look to the left to say, is this working well? I'm sure we could kind of cherry pick some trees where it looked well, but I just think it looks way too choppy for way too long for the other trades. For me, I'd be a pass on DB as a trade. That being said, we'd have I can't find any reason to like this chart using RMO. Do you disagree, Kelly?
I don't disagree, but if I did trade it, it would probably be with tight stops.
Yeah. Okay. We did. That's not to say there hasn't been some good trades along the way. For RMO, I think I'd pass. There's better stocks for RMO. So in any case, Geo says I agree. DB is pretty sideways. So now there are some other strategies you could look at with this. Like Dr. Elder has that's a different class, but there are reasons I could get excited about this stock. I'm not there with RMO. I'll put it that way, and I'll just move on. All right, and so let's go ahead and kind of talk a little bit about that. We had a lot of questions about pricing. I think it's actually 27 years now. I went and counted this morning. I need to update this slide. I do want to kind of reiterate, we just talked a little bit about the MetaStock program, and there's some things that I wanted to kind of show you. I like that system. I've been using it forever. It's just, when we show MetaStock, I could show this thing all week. We've been working on it literally for 30 years. The reason I like to show this is the reasons I talked about before, but I don't want you to forget about the fact that it has scanning, that we've got our patented forecaster models in there, the fact that you can test trading ideas and see how well they work. Scanning we showed today with our real-time product, and even with our DC product, you have access to news and research better in real time than you do have in DC, but you have access to kind of the Refinitiv market data either way. And there was some questions about pricing. So MetaStock Real Time, the price of it is $250 per month. That includes MetaStock Real Time. It also includes a product that's called MetaStock Zenith. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about MetaStock Zenith. It's a white label product of ours. It was developed as an institutional product. It's the same product a lot of institutions and banks use. And they spent over $1 billion making it. It's literally a news feed they spent $1 billion on that's supported by 2,000 different full-time reporters and 200 different news bureaus. It's an awesome product. It's a direct competitor to Bloomberg, and we include it with MetaStock Real Time because you need it to power the real-time data. Literally what extensions pay, or what hedge funds pay to get access to this is quite a bit more than this, but we have a deal where if you're a retail investor, you can get MetaStock Real Time as well as MetaStock Zenith for only $250 a month. Okay, we do have a DC only version of the program with North American data. That's $69 per month. That'll include MetaStock. There's a little bit of a typo here. These are new slides, so designed for 2020, and so there's a typo here. MetaStock DC, this will include the data region of your choice. It's a little bit cheaper if you don't get North America, but it's $69 a month. Again, it's been the software that's been rated number one for 27 years in a row. Normally it's either $250 a month or $69 a month. We'll give you basically a 3-month access. So that's up to about $500 value. What we say is basically buy 1 month and we'll give you 3 months for free. Okay. With that, we include the Unleash the Power of MetaStock, which is normally like a $99 value. We're going to give you a white glove service appointment where somebody's actually going to give you a call, one of our technicians, help you with any problems you might have during installation, answer any questions you've got, and we'll also give you a region of data of your choice. So the only thing that it doesn't include is if you want real-time data with the MetaStock real-time package, generally you're going to pay some additional exchange fees that go straight to the exchanges to cover that. But those aren't included, and they're generally fairly inexpensive if you want stocks. They can be more expensive for futures. In any case, I would recommend you give us a call, 800-882-3040, or you can chat online with us at metastock.com/saleschat. And I hope that helps. I'd encourage you to try it again. It's been rated number 1 27 years in a row. I have sales reps that aren't 27 years old. That's how long we've been rated the best software in our price category. I do want to say thank you for coming today. Give it a go. I do hope you like it as much as I do. And I'll see you at the next webinar.